What up? Mike check 1 2 1 2. We got Mike D over here. We got my man Leroy Green on the side, man. This is Goat Talk episode 3. Now, if you're tuning in, the first Goat Talk was a debate between Leroy and myself that was long overdue. Nas versus Jay Z. The
Yep.
second one, second one was really dope as well, man. The second one we had some real fun with. We had some real fun with and got a lot of
Pocket.
engagement with the Pac and Kendrick. It was really insightful. It kind of took it a different direction. People thought that it was going to be just this debate and spirited debate, but it was just more
Right.
of understanding some evolutions and and when somebody's taking things, I don't want to say to a different level, but to a different generation, if you will, if different level sounds different for you. Good morning over
Exactly.
there, man. Good morning.
Exactly. It's morning. I'm on West Coast time, y'all. So it's a little early over here, but I like that. You got to get
Yeah.
up and get going, man. You know what I mean? Because they don't want us to do Goat Talk 3.
Well, today, Go
They don't
Talk
want me to
3.
have sound effects. They don't want me to, you got to keep people on their toes. If you ain't got a hater, you ain't doing enough work. You know what I
No,
mean?
real talk,
They
man.
don't
And
want us to
I
beat
know
the
I know a
vibe.
little I know a little bit about that as well, man. Today,
Exactly.
speaking of
They
haters,
don't want Mike
and
to remind people who made this thing cool.
hey
Mike
man,
made, you know what I mean? But hey, I'm gonna pop your
hey man,
collar, Mike. Like I told you, I'm gonna pop your collar. You ain't gonna pop your collar. I'm over.
hey, follow the leader, man. I'm thinking about the next shit, man. Like Jay said, man, I'm not looking at you dudes. I'm looking past you.
Hey,
And
that's how you.
we and we're coming up with stuff like Goat Talk, man. And Goat Talk is going today. We got culture versus vulture, man. We're gonna switch it up a little bit. And I know that a lot of people I'm gonna be the person hated on the day, right? Like, you always feel like you're the villain, man. Whenever I speak Eminem, I become the villain automatically. And I want to clarify some things today. And you brought up a good topic, man, like culture versus vulture. And
hmm
let the people know how you came to that title and what we're gonna be really discussing today.
Well, I've had that title in thought for a while because of the Kendrick and Drake battle. Because you heard that a lot, like culture and then vulture. So that's where I'm thinking culture vulture, but that also applies when we talk about a bunch of different artists, particularly when people talk Eminem, right? So that's one thing, and I just think there's a lot going on right there in that conversation because some people you might think is culture, later you find out they more vulture. Some people that you might think is a vulture, later you find out, oh no, they really culture. So it's just how you look at it. Right now, also there's a discussion with J. Cole and his dealings with being compared with Freddie Gibbs and other people, and he wasn't in the battle. So just as far as rapping a certain way that that shows people that you are culture. Like if you kick off your rhymes with "I'm the best MC because of XYZ," that is culture. You know what I mean? And I know people kind of feel a way about that. But rapping about rapping, that in itself, it has been around for a long time. Like,
It's from the,
you know,
since the beginning.
right. It's not just like, let me take a topic and then rap about that. Today, this is what happened today in my day. It's like I'm rapping just to show you how dope I am at rapping. So,
Since
there's
you're
different
speaking
takes
about
on
J. Cole, and not to interrupt you, I
No, go
want to
ahead.
stay on this thought. We're gonna get to Eminem in a second and my, perspective on Eminem, and I want to be clear. I don't think Eminem is a vulture per se, but
Right.
we'll get into all of that. I've seen people and different memes and things like that where they're talking about, the stance that Kendrick took against Drake on Not Like Us, and pretty much this whole battle by him
Mm.
being mulatto, right? Some people feel like or want to know why J. Cole's mixed background doesn't get thrown in the mix in that same way. No pun intended.
I'm gonna go there.
Why do you think that J. Cole is absolved of having mixed background? Where I don't know if J. Cole's father was in his life, but a lot of people say he wasn't. Whereas
hmm
Drake has mixed background, and we know Dennis, and we know that Drake's uncle is the legendary Larry Graham from Sly and the Family Stones. He's rooted in culture if we're going to be honest and if we're going to take it like that. So, how does Cole not get hit with the same type of
Like assessment,
flack that
racial
Drake
assessment.
gets for being a mulatto?
Yes, and we're gonna go there, right? And I don't think there's any room. Well, there is, but I don't think people need to be offended about that. You know, when it comes to this goat talk thing, it's gonna be topics that aren't really discussed because they are very hard to be discussed. You
Right.
see what I'm saying? But I'm gonna go there with a theory that I've never heard discussed before. But I'm gonna talk about grammar, the way that we look at words from a grammar standpoint, and the way that white people were raised to look at words from a grammar standpoint. Now, racially, right, when you're mixed in our culture, if you're mixed, we tend to say you're black. You know what I mean? Because that has just been the overall just the way we grow up looking at things. You know what I mean? Your mom's white, your dad's black, or vice versa. You come outside, we're just gonna look at you as black.
I
You know what
mean,
I'm saying?
because we
So
got all type of complexions, and so like who knows? You could be mulatto and or not, or I could. You know what I'm saying? Like, so we just say
exactly.
black person.
Yeah, I've had people come up to me and say, you're mixed, and I'm like, nah, both my parents are black. My dad is actually very dark skinned. You know,
Are
he's
you
like a
you're FBI,
very
right?
yeah.
Okay.
My yeah, my yeah. Yeah. My grandpa is from Louisiana. My grandma's from Texas. My mom's from San Francisco. My dad's from Richmond. Very dark skinned man. But my mom was light skinned. You know what I mean?
Okay.
What it was. But my grandma was Creole and kind of like she was very fair skinned. You know what I mean? Um, so it
Do
is
you
what
want
it
to
is.
save that part of the topic for after we address Eminem, or do you want to jump into the Drake and Cole? I'm ready to talk Eminem actually.
Yeah, no, we can go in either way, but I just want people to see that there are different ways we look at things. But with Cole, I think he's all right because we look at him as black. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think
Oh,
I will say this. I do think that the way that Drake jumps around different lingos and different, from Memphis to, Atlanta to, Houston or whatever, I think that that makes him open for that level of criticism where J. Cole never did that. J. Cole's always been J. Cole from the jump. And it wasn't like he had to pick up different slangs or, even need to attach himself to a sound or a movement. And I
mm,
get it, man. Like that's part of how Drake was rolled out. He's Canadian. So, and him signing the Cash Money when Wayne was at his hottest, he had to kind of adapt anyway. And so he was able to kind of be himself, but still be able to do some things that meshed in with what Wayne and Young Money was doing. So I think that
right.
how he started. And so as sounds started to change and different things started to happen, he just, gravitated to those things. I don't
Hmm.
know if it was an intentional vulturing because this is what I'll say, and we're about to talk about Eminem in a second. But
Hmm.
I mean, when you look at Rick Ross, at least up until a year ago or so, these guys will tell you that Drake added something to what they do. He got guys plaques, man. He got, the
Yeah, he
people that
did.
he worked with, he got even Meek Mill, the person that he had a whole battle with, he got him his first #1 record. So, a vulture just takes and takes and takes. But I
Right.
can't really say, just from a numeric or fiscal, standpoint, that Drake hasn't given back. Now, did those things help Drake as well? Sure, but that's
Hmm.
what I call an even exchange here. And
Absolutely.
and for most people, they'll take a #1 record if you know what I'm saying. I mean, that's like giving somebody a pass in the hood, right? Like if you go to somebody's city, you know what I'm saying. And I don't know, you know what I'm saying, what's going on in your city. You take me around and let everybody know I'm cool. What's wrong with that? And I'll do the same when you come
Nothing.
by. You know what I mean? And so
Right.
that's an even exchange there. So I don't see the vulturing in that.
And yes, and I don't as well. Now some people they would say, well, he's taking different people's styles, and therefore you are taking different people's ethnic approaches to that style, which I would also agree with. But I got to be honest, in my opinion, and I've always felt this way as artists. Period. I think we all take from each other.
We all
I
take
I
each
just
other.
I just believe that. You know what I believe that whoever you grew up listening to, you are going to sound kind of like. And I believe that as styles change, you're going to adapt. Now, Drake, he has put in a lot of work. If you, regardless of how you feel about Drake, and I've said this too to a lot of people, to do what Drake does would require thousands and thousands of hours in the studio, like ridiculous hours. You know what I mean? You cannot just do this without spending so many hours in the studio. It's almost insane. Like you have to have insane dedication.
You
You know,
remember that
so
time when you said Jay-Z has over 1,000 songs?
yes, I remember
Now
that.
that's
Yes,
true of Drake. Has to. I mean, when you got
yes,
80 songs that are top 10, a top 100, yeah, he got
yes.
thousands of songs. And like you said, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of studio
Mhm.
work. That's a lot of effort. Now, a lot of people say that, he didn't write all of that stuff. And again,
I got it.
I
Hmm.
mean, again, how much stuff did he write for other people as well? And again, I'm not sitting here and we can have a whole segment on ghostwriting and and what that means. And
That's the vulture piece that I'm gonna
yeah,
get that we're gonna get to.
okay. Well, let's talk ghostwriting today. All right, now let me get to Eminem. So
No, but that's the
yeah.
vulture piece and how we look at that, like how
Hmm.
we look at ghostwriting. Because I do believe, and a lot of people take issue with me, I do believe that you should sit with ghostwriters. Now, if you are claiming that you are a lyricist, then you don't need to sit with ghostwriters, right? But if you are claiming that I'm here to take over the pop landscape, then I think you should be sitting with a group of people. You can come up with the best bars still out of all the ghostwriters. You know what I mean? That happens too, where the artist beats all the ghostwriters. But if you're trying to take over the pop world, you know,
You heard that
they don't write.
story of when well, MC Search or somebody, I don't want to get, caught out there on this, but
Right.
somebody was alleging that MC Search once tried to write a rhyme for Rakim. And the story is, and I remember when
Mm,
Rakim was asked about this, he said, he'd slap up, whoever said that because he ain't nobody ever wrote for him. And I get that. But the
yeah.
story is what happened was when Rakim was allegedly experiencing writer's block, Leroy Cohen thought it would be a good idea to say, hey, well, let's get MC Search to write a song for Rakim. Now, it didn't get past the conversation stage.
Uh-huh.
But my point is, back in those days, and just in the music industry in general, when an artist might have a lot on their plate, and even great writers don't, I mean, hits are hard to come by. Even great writers get to a
Extremely.
point where it's like, okay, well, these are quality songs, but ain't none of them hits, and ain't none of them gonna really penetrate the culture or whatever. That's when ghost writers come in for the most part, right? No one's coming in for the most part, generally speaking. No one's coming
Right.
in saying, okay, this artist, let's just say, for example, because they always throw Snoop's name out there. Snoop can't rap. Let me write something for him. No, that's not the case. If
Right.
there's somebody who has a very potentially big record on their hands, and that person might not be a star, and you got a star right here who could take this record and make this record huge, that's just a business decision. And
Better
I
come on now.
honestly don't see anything wrong with it because what happens is the ghostwriter gets a royalty that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise, and the hit maker or the star gets another hit added to their catalog. It doesn't take away from their ability to write songs,
No.
make music, perform, or any of those things. Really, to me, I feel like it benefits everyone involved.
Now, for me personally, and I don't mean to disrespect Rakim, because M80, he's over there too as management over there. Rakim is a friend of mine, but I would also agree that I'm going to write bars and spit them for you to use. Now you don't have to use them. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Ghostwriting is also, I'm saying some things that's going to trigger your own creativity. So I'm gonna say these bars, and I may use different cadences that you can also use different cadences if you like. You know what I mean? But it's just with a person like Rakim, sometimes just triggering the creativity.
Yeah.
I said something that triggered a memory for you, or I introduced a topic that you then ran with. It doesn't always have to be you're saying exactly what I wrote down.
Right.
You know. So,
I
but
agree. And
yeah.
and I think Kanye has done that a lot in his career. And
Mhm.
when it comes to the ghostwriters and things like that, people find a way to use that to discredit, said artist. Like it's cheating almost. Now
I
it would
get
be
it.
one thing if, like I said, I use this example all the time. If somebody wrote, let's say, the Evils or Dead Presidents 2 or something for Jay-Z,
Mhm.
yeah, I might be like, okay, that's
Right.
not cool. But if somebody wrote "Give It to Me" for Jay and the whole party vibe and the flow and all that stuff, I have no problem with that. I really don't. And maybe I used to at some point, but when it comes to those type of records and things like that that aren't as personal, I don't have a problem with that. And I truly believe to this day, and I know they deny it, I believe that Rakim wrote "Summertime" for Will Smith, and I have no problem with that. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
it,
I mean,
I could be
when
wrong.
you no, when you have a Rakim or a Jay Z, what happens when you're 20 years into your career and you have already proven your lyricism game? Then what? You know what I'm saying?
Let's
It's
look
like,
at it
what do
like
they?
this, bro.
No.
Let's look at it like this. Rakim records "Summertime." It's a banger, but it's not what it is with Will Smith doing it. And let's just say hypothetically, he said he didn't do it, and yeah, let's just say he did hypothetically write that record.
Right.
You know
Hmm.
the amount of royalties the guy Rakim gets from a record like that? I love that for him. You know what I'm
Insane.
saying? And everybody wins.
And everybody wins. The
Everybody
goal
wins.
here
Like,
is to
let's just
win.
say, hypothetically, I've said this before too. Let's just say Big Daddy Kane wrote "Jingle and Baby" remix for LL or "Around the Way Girl" for LL. During that period where the game was transitioning and people like Big Daddy Kane and all of them were kind of getting left out in the cold,
Hmm.
you get these records on LL. LL's gonna sell, and these are records that you can live on for the rest of your life. And
That's the
I mean,
goal.
everybody wins.
That's
What's
the
wrong
goal.
with that? I mean,
That's the goal. I mean, sometimes we're gonna want to just spar, right? Or I'm just gonna
right,
battle rap on this song just because I just want to spar. Well, you could write that by yourself, you know what I mean?
right,
But if the goal is to make summertime, you see what I'm saying? You see how the goal is so
right,
crazy that you may want to hear references. You may want to hear someone else's opinion. You may want to take a line from, so what I mean. If you're especially if you're not claiming to be super MC. Will Smith is not out here claiming I'm the super MC. That's not what he's claiming. You know what I mean? So, the goal is to win. Ultimately, you want to put some music out there that sets you up to where you'll never have to worry about a bill again, and that's it. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
especially in that day. I mean, maybe people view it differently now because music actually isn't something you buy anymore. But in
Yeah,
that era where it was hand to hand engagement for a product and what I'm saying, and the customer giving money, the goal was to make the best song that was going to connect the most and get the most people to actually spend their money on it. Now, with that being said, Eminem.
Slim Shady.
Eminem is, I want to say he's the highest selling rap artist of all time. Either him or Tupac. I think he surpassed Tupac. It kind of go back and forth. Um,
Uh-huh.
I'm sure he surpassed him at this point.
Oh yeah,
Do I think
probably.
Do I think Eminem is a vulture? No. I think Eminem loves hip hop culture. I think Eminem really works at his craft. I think that his pen game is something that he's very intentional about, even if it's things that don't connect with me all the time. I
Hmm.
see the intent. I see the work, the detail. He's very detailed in those things. But where I miss the culture part, right? I don't think that when we talk about hip hop culture and we talk about hip hop spaces, if you will, let's just say, I don't even want to say nightclub because that just sounds like you're just, marginalizing hip hop to
I know what you mean.
nightlife, but just our everyday life. You know when you listening to hip hop, you know what I mean?
Right.
At the cookouts or even when you're just chilling or whatever. I don't think that his music was made in the intent to um, to connect with the hip hop listener. And I only say that because again, I was there when he launched, and I do remember
Mhm.
him being on the anthem from Sway and Tech, which I thought was incredible. I love the fact that he was in there and was able to exist in his space and do it in the way that he did. But if
Mhm.
people remember back in 98, 99, when Eminem was being launched and released, and MTV was a big part of that, and Hi, My Name is the single, I Just Don't Give a Fuck, and things like that,
Mhm.
he was existing in that rock rap slash pop lane. TRL
Right.
was very heavy on the launching of Eminem, along with the Limp Bizkits of the world, the Kid Rocks of the world, even NSYNC, Britney Spears, and all those. That's why he was mentioning them in the records because that was his fan base. And back then, even though it's revisionist history for these old school hip hop stations now, they weren't playing those songs on hip hop radio or urban
Right.
radio, if you will. He was getting played on pop radio. And again, there's nothing wrong with that because we know he had skills. I think he was the first real, true hybrid of a
Mhm.
white MC who we knew had the skill set, but they made sure he made music for that white pop crossover audience, which I have no
Right.
problem with. I think that was the smartest move. My biggest issue has always been the fact that years go by, and then in revisionist history terms, people go back and start looking at his numbers and comparing them to people who had to exist in the hip hop space, the DMXs, even Nelly. If we're being honest, Nelly didn't hit
Right.
TRL until Country Grammar was a big ass hit on urban radio and BET and things like that. Same thing when
Mhm.
Juvenile put out 400 Degrees and Back That Ass Up crossed over. Like you heard these songs for months and months and months until they got to TRL. He was able to skip all those steps and just go straight to that quote unquote crossover audience. And I
Mhm.
just think that when you look at the numbers like on a page, I think it's dishonest to even act like he was operating within the culture in that timepiece. The only operating he did in the culture at that time, well, like I said, he jumped on Sway and Tech, but on a big stage was Dr.
Uh,
Dre's 2001 and an Up in Smoke tour. But other than the Up in Smoke tour, he was touring with rock acts. He was touring with Papa Roach, and that's his audience. And
mhm.
and I would challenge someone to even say like if there is a hip hop promoter out there who knows that they have advertising or whatever to urban radio back in 2000 or whatever, they're not gonna book Eminem for a show because their audience isn't his audience, and that's all I'm saying.
Excuse me. Yeah, I'm not mad at that because I don't think there is a right or wrong here with how we looked at Eminem back then and even now, because obviously I'm a black man that hangs around with other black people in black neighborhoods and black circles, so we have our viewpoint, right, and our way that and the artists that we relate to. You're more likely to hear Snoop Dogg around me than you are to hear Eminem. You know what I'm saying? But so I don't think there's a wrong there. I think what Eminem did right though is he played that game well. When it's your time to blow up as a rapper, whoever you are, I think even if you're black or whoever you are, when it's time for you to blow up, there's a number of variables that you must consider, right? Now, if you're really hot, they are going to put you among the pop world. That is going to happen if you're really hot. Now, when they put you on that stage, on that Super Bowl level stage, do you hold on to your culture and exhibit that, or do you just play the game? I'm not mad at whatever you want to do because it's ultimately about what you're comfortable doing. You know what I mean? But I do think that M played it, the best he could. Yes, he made mistakes as well. He came off the street. He already had a substance issue, so that's going to play in how you play the game. It's extremely difficult to do both, to have that issue in business. But he played it. But I think that that's fair, right? Because I've heard that argument. I've heard people say M's the best. I remember one time I was at a gas station, and I bought a Source magazine with Slaughterhouse on the cover. So Eminem was standing in front of Slaughterhouse. I
Hmm.
take it up to the register, and it's a very elderly white man is working the register. He says, "Yeah, you know who the best rapper is, right?" I said, "Nah, I mean, what you mean, like the best rapper in Slaughterhouse?" He's like, "Just period. The best rapper is Eminem." I'm saying, okay. And I think I just said, well, M came up around a lot of, strong MCs and great producers. So this is what we get. I wasn't trying to have a back and forth. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I was just trying to buy my magazine. So, but I get it though, that he was saying, no, this is the best rapper because in his mind, that is true. You know what I mean? And I
Hmm.
don't he probably doesn't know the ins and out of rap because I've met people that don't know the ins and outs of rap and they listen to pop music, they listen to rock and roll. That's what they listen to. And
Right.
they're like, "Well, I make an exception when it comes to M because he's the best and the rest of these people are not." Now you got to understand
But
from
but
speaking.
you got to think about this too. What does it
Mhm.
say about a person that has a limited view of overall genre, but the one
Mhm.
person that whose perspective they understand is the best? You know what I'm saying? Like that's
Yes, right.
colonization at its finest, right? Like if you don't know rap like that, you're not even qualified to even say who's the best. And I always hear people with the argument saying, well, he did bring a different perspective. Like, there wasn't any real white representation or as far as perspectives in hip hop and all of that stuff. That's fine.
Mm.
Even if you brought that into hip hop, does that supersede what everybody else has done? And why? Because it's a white perspective? That's how it sounds. You know what I mean? It's like, so
Yes.
you don't know too much. You don't know the Cool G raps like that. You don't know Rakim like that. You don't know Nas's catalog like that. You don't know Jay's catalog like that. But because you know Eminem, he's the
Right.
best. You could say he's your favorite. You know what I mean? And even
Right,
that's,
right, right.
you know,
No, they're like, he's the best. They're like,
right.
forget my
It's like
favorite.
you're trying
He's
to
the
tell
best.
me that he's the best. Vlad
And
used
they're
to
gonna
do that
tell
a
you.
lot. Like I remember Vlad early on, like 10 years ago, he don't do this anymore. When people would name, he would ask people their top five. And then when they don't say Eminem, they'll say their top five. He's like, well, what about Eminem? Like, nigga, I didn't say Eminem. You know what I'm
Right,
saying? Like, you're trying to
right.
add him into the conversation, and it should be an organic thing. No one should
Mm.
have to even justify why Eminem's a goat or this and that, or because you always hear people talk about what Rakim said, what Jay Z said.
Right, right,
They
right,
don't
right,
take that for nobody else.
right.
You
Right,
know,
right, right.
like it doesn't take that. Like, don't stop trying to convince us. Like the music
Yeah,
should be able to
right.
convince us, and the music has never been enough, in my opinion, when it comes to him. So people have to go to the technicals. They have to go to the freestyles, and it's like,
Uh,
well, damn, we don't do this for anybody else. I saw you guys do
right.
that for J. Cole on the weekend round, but that was
Right. But overall, the reason why I tend to let that go, and I'm not mad at people that don't want to let that go, because there is some cultural arguments to be made there.
Yeah,
The reason why I tend to let that go is just because if I already am from a country that sees race a certain way, then I'm not going to be surprised when I see that perspective being played out in front of me. You see what I'm saying? Like, I kind
yeah,
of already expect, if I'm speaking to, a young white man or old white man or whoever, or whoever, and they're like, or even someone that's very technical, because you could be black and technical, or whatever race,
yeah.
and you're saying Eminem is the best. Well, then I kind of expected you to say that, so I'm not really put off. Now, does it make it right? Should you know about other MCs and the history of rap, and all the different chambers and styles, and things you could do? Absolutely, you should know them things if you're going to make a GOAT argument for somebody. But
Right.
if you don't know those things, for me to take the time out to educate you on that, it's already too far gone. You know what I mean? But
Mm.
but here's my thing though, and I've never heard this argument made. And we could go through Eminem songs, we could go through his career, whatever. I never heard this argument made though, is how we perceive language itself. Now, when it comes to grammar school, when we all were brought up in grammar, we were taught to write with proper English. We were taught to write with proper English and speak with proper English. Now, we could do that, right? Because we had to do that in order to get good grades. So that's what we did, right? But when we go out in public, we tend to take words and then throw a slang on it. You know what I mean? To have it make it double meaning, make it mean something else. Even something as simple as "I'm bad" would mean I'm good in the late '80s. You know what I'm saying? We say, "Oh, so I'm bad when I get on the basketball court." It's not "I'm bad, I'm a terrible basketball player." It's "I'm bad." You know what I'm saying?
Bad meaning
So
good, not bad meaning bad, but bad meaning good.
right, right. So you see how we take the word and we have spun it. Now, to us, now we hear it different. Now there's the popular world, pop world. They never got the spin on that. And even when they get the spin in their proper context and how they normally write and speak, they are not going to always use it in the spin that we use it. Right? Well, why am I saying this? Is because when you have a lot of white MCs, and this is no disrespect, I can hear the structuring of your rhymes, and I could tell you are probably writing and speaking with very proper English. Well, that's very, and you know how to put words together in that way because of the structure and the wording and how you're right and the details of the technicalities in your rhymes. That's just a fact. When I'm among black people, my own, when you say something we agree with, what do we say? We say, "I feel you." Well,
Mm-hmm.
"I feel you" doesn't even make sense, because if I say something, you didn't feel anything, but actually we did. Our
Mm.
senses are so sensitive to where we feel the vibration of the words physically. So we say on a subconscious level. So then we say outright, "Okay, I feel you." So
Mm.
what we're saying is, "I agree with you to the degree in which I feel you." That is specific to us.
That's hip
I just
hop.
I just want to make that clear. That's us. We feel you.
You
Not
know,
everybody
and
feels.
this line jumped in my head like on ice cream when
Right,
Ghostface said, uh, "Your honey dip, summertime fine jury dripping."
right.
We understand that. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? Like Eminem would never say that. You know what I mean? Or his
Mm-hmm.
audience would never understand an MC saying that. He's saying, what up, what up, this bad, he's talking to a
I'm
bad chick,
feeling you.
you know what I mean? Like, what up,
Right,
baby? My it's summertime, my damn jewelry's dripping, or her jewelry's dripping, you shining, whatever.
right.
Like, we understand those things, and you're right. When you get, many of the MCs who are outside the culture, and Drake could account for this as well. You don't get that type of language and that type of terminology. And to your point of "I feel you," a lot of people don't feel these MCs that don't come from a place where they feel like they're
Right.
actually talking to you. I
Hmm.
feel like some of those individuals are talking to people outside of the culture. And even though that does somewhat bring people in the culture sometimes,
Hmm.
doesn't really add to that culture unless it's monetarily. You know what I mean? Like from a creative
Right.
standpoint, from an enrichment standpoint, it kind of waters
Right.
it down in a sense.
Yes. And that I think also has to do with where you're from too. You know what I mean? Because when I meet and I'm gonna speak in white and black today, but y'all know I'm not. I mean, no disrespect to anybody,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
when I meet a person from Oregon, then they have a particular perspective. I meet a white person from Oregon, right? I meet a white person from East Oakland. They have a slightly different perspective.
right,
So you know what I mean. So they can understand what I'm saying. They're not black, but they understand where I'm coming from. Like right off the bat. You know what I mean? They grew up around a lot of black people. But here's where the spin comes into play, right? When I talk about proper English, right? As children, let's be honest, when we were growing up among our own people, and I'm not saying this is bad. I'm just saying what happened. When we speak a certain way, what did we hear from our peers? Oh man, you talking white.
right.
Let's be real. Let's be real. Now that was a diss back then. The reason why I'm not taking that as a diss now is because I recognize the slang factor. And what they were saying was, okay, you're speaking in a way that removes our slang, and we pick up on that.
Yeah,
We're speaking in a way as if we're in an office setting when we're on a playground. You
right.
know what I'm saying? So that's the context of, oh, you talking white right now.
You're not
But see,
talking to me right now.
right,
Yeah,
right. But see, that had an effect on our psychology. Because most of us have heard that in some setting, because the effect that it had was, if I'm speaking in this way, it must be bad. And I don't mean bad meaning good right there. I mean it must be something negative,
but
right?
when you think about hip hop and everything that appeals to hip
Mhm.
hop, it is that slang, it is that rawness, it is
It
that
is.
it's that way of life, and
It is.
it just even when you connect with regional sounds, or like how Outkast and Goody Mob connected with me, being
Mhm.
here in Atlanta, or how I connected to what Snoop and Dre and Cube and all those guys were doing in the West Coast. It's because
Mhm.
they're speaking your language, quote unquote, and sonically they're speaking your language too, because you're hearing a lot of samples from black music and soul
Yeah.
music their parents played. So they're literally speaking to you in those terms, and then when they're saying the things that they're saying, these are things that I feel like, you know what I mean? And I think that when it comes to Eminem's music, that connection has never been there. Um, but at least not with hip hop, with that hip hop populace. And I'm speaking in generalities, obviously. I think
Now I'm
that
gonna throw the cape on for M
I was
real
gonna
quick.
say,
Never thought I'd do
I
this.
think that the angle was for him to speak to people who look like him, and that's fine. You know what I'm saying? And
Of
he
course, of course.
successfully did that. The numbers speak to that. You look
Right.
at the singles from back then, the "Hi, My Name Is," and I think that him being the type of artist that he was allowed the record label to put a song like "Stand" out as a single. I don't think that they would put Stan out as a single in 2000 for Jay-Z. If Stan's on the Dynasty, they're like, nah, nigga, give me this, give it to me over here. You know what
Right.
I mean? Like, so
Uh-huh.
he never had to make club bangers. He never had to make, because we always talk about Nas had to make If I Ruled the World for radio. He never had to do any of those things. And I
Right.
think that the fact that he was able to be him and able to speak to a large populace that was already going to connect to him and his story and his background, it did a lot for him fiscally and as far as the numbers and all of those things. But I do think that ultimately, culturally in hip hop, it pushed him back further. And I think that people are
Hmm.
seeing that now, and this is why he's not in these discussions like he used to be 10 years
Okay.
ago. I feel like the mainstream media
Okay.
tried to put him in these discussions, years ago, and now when people start looking at, that's when that whole narrative, man, ain't nobody playing that in their ride. What is
Mhm.
that about? That's about not connecting with
The
language,
culture.
production, and culturally.
Right. But I don't want that piece to get lost because I think that should be studied somewhere.
Yeah, I agree.
The proper grammar versus the slang in hip hop and how those two play a part in culture, right? Because when we listen to Wu-Tang, Wu-Tang doesn't have to make sense grammatically. They could throw a bunch of words together, but we know exactly what they mean. You know what I mean? Because we're
Hmm.
feeling what they mean without them having to explain it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's culture, right? And I'm going to talk about that later when I do a show today. We're going to talk about Wu-Tang Clan and how much culture is involved in all those words flying at you, right?
Shallon's
All those
finest.
darts.
What up, boo? Peace, your highness. Yo, I'm
Right.
lounging. Hey, like even like you said, those are words that don't normally go together, but we understood them. Like peace, your
Right.
highness. Like that.
Right. They
Like
throwing darts. They don't even they
yeah.
don't write rhymes. They throw darts. Even that doesn't make sense to most popular America. They would be like, they throw darts. What are they like? Are they at the gym? Or I mean, are they at the bar throwing darts? No, they write rhymes. You know what I'm
And,
saying? But
and I would argue that those are the things that make hip hop what it is. Those are the things that make hip hop special. And if you never had to actually operate in that arena, in that trajectory, it's very difficult for me to rate you. Like, I don't even want to say Eminem's not top whatever, top this. It's just very difficult for me to even rate him when we start factoring in all of those things. He's such an outlier with the
right,
rest of the rap world. And like I said, when he was launched, he wasn't even put in the mix with the rest of the rap world at all. Like it wasn't like he was going to be on the tour with DMX and Jay and these guys. The only reason why Up in Smoke worked is because of his involvement with Dre and his involvement in 2001, and they made that work, which was
right,
fantastic as well. But
right.
without his collaborations with Dre and Guilty Conscious or on 2001, I don't think
Mhm.
he goes on that tour.
Well, this is where I kind of start to disagree a little bit, Mike.
Okay.
And I'll just say it like this, right? If you're a black artist and you make it into the pop space, right, you can make people sing and dance along, or you could become a problem in that space if you so choose to be, like an Ice Cube or a Tupac. Maybe they thought Tupac was gonna be a nice guy that was just gonna play the game, and no, he
Yeah.
became, you know, they found out differently. Even Jay,
Even
maybe they
Kanye.
thought Jay, yeah, or maybe they thought Jay would be a really nice guy and I'm just gonna make everybody dance. If you really listen to what he's saying, he's doing a little bit more than that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
what M did was, yeah, he walked through the door when they said, "Okay, now we're going into the pop world," and he said, well, "Okay, well, I'm coming through that door with you." But he never lost that battle feel from Detroit. He never lost that competitive, like, I'm gonna battle rap you to death. He never lost that I'm going to piss you off. Because remember, he's coming up under that Ice Cube era where I'm going to rap in a way to intentionally piss you off.
I do think that
You know
there's
what
a
I'm
lot of
saying?
shock value in him in the first couple of years. But as far as that rap battle thing, I don't feel
Mhm.
like he started leaning towards that until after 8 Mile. And
The
everything else
movie.
kind of everything else was just kind of shock value stuff. Like the Slim Shady LP, which actually is my personal. I think the Eminem Show is his best album, but the Slim
Yeah,
LP is probably my personal favorite because I like the way he's rapping on there better than on the
exactly,
other
exactly.
albums. But if we're gonna be technical, the Eminem Show is clearly his best album. But even with the Slim Shady LP, there was a lot of shock value and stuff there. But that was like, I mean, he was funny, and I never
Right.
really took him as. And I'm being 100% honest here. I understood he could rap, but I never was like, yo, this dude's the best in the game, or he better than like Redman. Or I never that never even
Okay.
crossed my
Okay.
mind back then. It was just the fact that okay, he's dope. If you would have asked me back in like '99 or 2000, like who's better, DMX or Eminem, I'd have
Mm.
laughed you out the room. Like you know what I'm saying? Like it's not even
Right,
because
right.
it's a whole
Now,
different
I
thing. Because like you said, we feel
yeah,
DMX on a different level.
I had a I had a little bit of different take. Now I didn't think about it really because I'm a Nas head at this time. So in my mind, Nas is Nas. You know what I mean? And so, and I'm coming off of Cube, Pac, then Nas. You know what I mean? Before I get into J. So at this time, I'm like, nah, Nas the best, right? But however, when I heard Eminem, though, I thought that we may have a problem
Yeah, I felt
because
like that when I heard cannabis. Like when I heard cannabis, I
yes,
was like,
yes,
yeah,
that too,
yeah,
him too, of course. Him, but the reason why they were similar to me, Cannabis and Eminem were very similar to me, is because of the wording of how they were rhyming, right? It's not exactly what they were saying that was so amazing. It was just how they were rhyming. M is going to rhyme some words together that you wouldn't think rhyme together. And this is why I said, okay, this guy might be a problem
yeah.
because if he continues to rhyme like this, he could make a very good argument that I am indeed the best or who I say I am.
Well,
Now,
what cannabis taught me as
you know,
well, we gotta
Cannabis
wait
could have
on
done
the
the same.
music, and the music is what really holds the weight. Because again, the freestyles and all that, we used to download Eminem freestyles on Napster and cannabis
Mhm.
freestyles on Napster, and I bought the Marshall Mathers LP off the strength of stuff that that was out there
Yeah,
on the internet as far as the
yeah.
freestyles and stuff. And so when I heard the actual music, I'm like, well, yeah, this ain't something I would listen to. You know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
and and it made me think about like when Cannabis dropped his debut album. We're sitting here like, yo, all these verses are great, but am I really gonna listen to this music? And and I
Mm.
start thinking about like you said with Nas, Jay, and all the greats at that time, DMX too. I actually listened to their music, and so
Right,
you being a bar for bar tactician is cool and all on freestyles and those things,
right.
but we want to see that not only do those things but translate to the music as well, because that kind of separates the good from the great. I remember when I heard
I
Miss
hear
Fat
that.
Booty for the first time, man, and I heard most stuff on Miss Fat Booty. I heard most stuff before, like
Right.
on B Boy Document and stuff like that, and the Black Star shit. But I was like, yo, this dude is amazing. You know what I mean? And the
I hear that.
song's great. And the song's great.
But here's where here's where I disagree and where I'm going to go left, and I mean this for I mean this for Cannabis, Wu Tang, I even mean it for J Cole. Now, I don't think you have to make good songs to be ill. I
Yeah.
think that you can just be ill, and that I'm okay with that. Now at that particular time, there is a battle culture that's brewing, right? In the late 90s. I can barely go to school without engaging in a battle because people knew, I was putting together music, I was dealing with labels that were interested, etc. I could barely get through school without a battle, right? So this is the culture that is brewing. Now, when M came through the door and he held that, I appreciated that, right? Because that's not about having good songs. That's about I'm gonna battle rap you to death. You know what I mean? And that's all that's about. And there was a crowd that was there just for that. And Wu Tang ate off that crowd too. You know what I mean? Because the Wu Tang, it's not always about a great song. A lot of times is we're just gonna bar you to death. You know what I mean?
But the thing
And
is, I
nine
didn't
all
see
nine.
any of the battles. And I
Right.
feel like the battles were overinflated to a degree because when you got in the game, the people that you're battling are not
Hmm.
the most fierce individuals in rap music. Now,
I
Granted,
can see.
I did like when he did I Remember when he was going to Everlast. Like he did his thing on I Remember. I
Right.
think the sauce when he was going to Benzino is, in my opinion, a top 15 diss record. But again, we're talking
Uh,
about Benzino, talking about Everlast, we're talking about Fred Durst, even Christina Aguilera, Mariah Carey, Nick Cannon. Like this is his battle resume. And when you
yeah.
find out that the 90, what was it, the Rap Olympics, the 97 Rap Olympics, that only happened one time. Rhymefest won it. And, Wendy Day kind of, and I don't want to, I don't want to take anything she says out of context, but she alludes
When do you come for you, Mike?
Wendy Day alludes to the notion that, and maybe she could add some clarification here as well. She
She'll come
alludes
for you.
to the notion that the Rap Olympics was pretty much set up just to showcase Eminem because his article in Unsigned Hype and the source didn't work. So they wanted to
Right.
actually find a way to showcase him and showcase his skills. And boom, here's the Rap Olympics, the 97 Rap Olympics, right in Los Angeles, California, right where Interscope Records is.
I hear that, but still though, when you're
But
when you're
people
on
take it
stage,
like he was just on the battle scene, like he's daylight or something. You know what I mean?
that's what I heard he was though. And see, I wasn't there, but from people who say that, I don't know if they lying,
Anybody
because
got the tapes?
yes, like allegedly, apparently, there are tapes of him battling. But what I'm saying is, when you step on that stage to battle someone, it could get very tricky. Maybe these guys ain't the best songwriters, but they not just gonna. You gonna have to know what you're doing. You can't just now when we see the battles, and I respect the battles right now, right? You know what I mean. But we know that they write for a month before that they actually get to the battle.
Yeah, yeah.
Back then, you don't write before you get to the battle because you don't even know who the opponent is going to be yet until you get there. So you might have wrote a whole verse for this guy and that guy, but you got to battle this other guy and this other guy. Now it's like, okay, they're really going off the top of the head. You know what I
You
mean?
got
And
people. You got people just
that's not
based
easy.
off of. Yeah, you're right. You got people that's just based off folklore and based off of 8 Mile, a movie, by the way, that will tell
Mhm.
you that Eminem is a better battle rapper than somebody like Cassidy, who we saw revolutionize battle
No,
rap culture. Like
no.
the way that we see rap battles now, Cassidy
Mhm.
has a lot to do with that.
Of
And I
course.
remember when Cassidy was saying that he would beat Eminem in the battle, people acting like he was tripping. Like, what are we talking
I don't
about?
know. Yeah, he could do that. I mean, I don't put nothing against him doing that.
But
But
that's
but
the
what I'm saying is,
overinflating of this legacy, and it starts with, again, the numbers and these unproven things. And I guess the part that I've always been vocal about is you took a detour to hit the white audience and you came back around and tried to act like everything you did over here applies over here. And you never played in this arena. And we're sitting here putting your numbers up against what Jay-Z did in that same year. It's like, it's not fair. Like you reach it, you know what I'm saying? Like you took
I
a whole
yeah,
path.
I
It's the
hear you
Elvis
though.
stuff, man. It really is.
Oh, okay, but I hear that, because even with the Elvis thing, once he hits that stage, it's no help for you once you hit that stage. You either people are gonna like you or they're not gonna like you, and you're not gonna be able to fake it going through all these different cities for too long. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
he's playing for an
So,
audience. To the Elvis point, he's playing
yeah,
for an audience that's amazed by what he's able to do. Like what Elvis was
true.
able to do
Mhm.
was be a pretty good dancer and pretty good singer for a white guy. Now you're not gonna put him in front of a black audience and these niggas is like, oh man, he's incredible. Like no, put
I,
Jackie Wilson out here, put James Brown out here. But if
no
you
doubt.
put him in front of the right audience, then yeah,
Mhm.
he looks amazing. You know what I'm saying?
And I'm that is just how the cards fell, right? But what I say that to say, like, as somebody who, at the first rappers who I really were fans of was LL Cool J, and
Hmm.
then here comes MC Hammer. So I'm originally looking at these two guys as the best rappers, right? Because I'm a kid at this time, and I see LL Cool J, and he just is a superhero to me.
Hmm.
Then I see MC Hammer, and he could dance really dope. Back in the day, dancing was dope. I don't know,
MC
man.
Hammer was the man, dog. Like he was the first super. Like I can't even put it in words. Like I think LL's the first hip hop superstar, but like Hammer was a mega star. He was everywhere. He had a cartoon. You know what I'm saying? He
Exactly.
had commercials. He was larger than life. Like there was a debate whether he was a better dancer than Michael Jackson back then. That's how
I
big
know.
Hammer was.
Yeah, because dancing was a thing. Like, you
Mm.
have to get down. Like, people want to see that you could dance, because that was spinning off of the breakdance culture. Because when hip hop first emerged, people are break dancing, pop locking. Then they want to see how many different moves you can do. That turns into a bigger thing, right? So MC Hammer emerges.
Well, I do
And
think that before you get to hold
yeah.
that thought, MC Hammer
Mhm.
is incredibly important too, because for people like my parents or whatever that just thought rap was a bunch of noise and just, they couldn't sing because that was the knock, because everything before that, you had to have vocal talent. They're just saying words or whatever. Hammer showed
Mhm.
people that, yo, I'm an entertainer. You know what I'm saying? And for people who
Right.
weren't really into rap, because of his dancing ability and his stage show, they were able
Mhm.
get into him. You know what I'm saying? Even if they didn't like rap like that.
Exactly. He'll pull you in by watching him
Yeah.
perform. So so these are the two guys I'm looking at as the rap stars, right? Then when Ice Cube comes through the door, it's a different ball game.
Oh
You
man.
know what I mean?
He
It's
stopped
a
the
di-
dancing. That's him.
it's a different ball game. Now I'm looking at Ice Cube like, okay, he's an entertainer, but he's telling my story now. And of course, I'm still a kid at this time, so it's not my personal story. But I realize that he's telling an overall Black experience in America, and I'm picking up on that. Do you know what I'm saying? So what I think M was able to do, aside from just the battle culture, which I think he held, whether people think that was a play or whatever, he held that on record, and he was a voice for people that weren't into Backstreet Boys, weren't into NSYNC,
Hmm.
weren't into Britney Spears, because that was a thing before he came out. People was like, yo, like, these guys ain't dope. Like, Backstreet Boys, they're like, bro, they're not dope. Like, what I'm saying? That was a thing. You know what I'm
Yeah, it
saying?
was like a pop counterculture. Like I said, he's in that
Exactly.
lane of Corn, Limp Bizkit,
Hmm.
Marilyn Manson, Kid Rock, that
The
fan
punk,
base.
the punk rock to rock.
Yeah, and I think Pink kind of existed in that world as well in a weird way, because she was always anti, Christina and
Yeah,
Britney.
I can
I
see that.
always say Pink is like the female Eminem.
I can see that. Yeah, yeah, because yeah, she was kind of counter to what they were doing. You know
Mm.
what I mean?
But she was
And
still very pop.
yeah, and that makes sense. It would make sense for you to counter whatever is super popular, right? So let's say whatever comes out tomorrow is the super popular thing. Let's say somebody's just dancing, or nobody's dancing. Then you come out dancing and you're actually dope. You may change the trajectory because you're counter. You know what I mean? You're the counter argument. And I think M being the counter to that, even though they thought he was part of that pop culture, what he actually was saying is, no, I'm the counter to this. I'm the counter energy. And that is hip hop. You know what I mean? I think,
Well,
that is hip hop
he
to me.
it is counterculture, but it's like he did that, in that lane. But
Mhm.
what did he ever service to? I mean, outside of the people he signed and 50 Cent and whatnot, through his
Right.
works, what exactly musically did he service to hip hop culture? When it's like all of those other records are service to, that outside counterculture.
Right. Well, in my view, if we were to go into that world, the suburbs at that time, right, and you were to say, well, let show me some of your rappers now, right? They actually had to put a lot of skill into their rap from that day forward. They couldn't no more just bullshit. Like we always took rap serious amongst ourselves because it was competitive. You know, I'm gonna try to rhyme better than the guy in front of me, right?
Right.
Or the guy me or whatever. Now in their world, it wasn't competitive like that. They kind of looked down on just that in general. You know, they'd be like, man, that rap stuff, you know, it's corny because it's not even like real music, right? So Eminem emerges, and now when they pick up a pen to write a rap, they have to come with some level of skill. Now I know that's not us, you know what I mean? But what I'm saying, how that helps us is it kind of made it to where on that front, like, no, this takes skill.
Yeah.
This takes serious skill.
So you
You
mean the
cannot just
credibility side of what rappers do? This ain't about just popping champagne or whatever, whatever. It takes skill to actually
it
write
takes skill.
raps.
Yeah, to
Uh,
write a story like Stan, it takes skill. You're not gonna wing Stan. You're just not. You know what I'm
this is
saying?
this is where I'm gonna play devil's advocate here, and I get that, and you are right. But where it works at
Mhm.
Eminem's advantage is when you start looking at the record sales and you start looking at the successes, because usually, and Jay Z will tell us this too, our
Yeah,
greats have to dumb it down to actually go out there and do the amount of records that
that's
an
true.
Eminem show album would do. So what it
Mhm.
makes it look like for the people that are in his weight class sales wise, oh, he's a much better technical writer than them. Like, wait a minute, like Jay had to
Mhm.
dumb it down to go sell the records and he didn't.
And I hear that, and this brings me back to the point that I made coming into this discussion. When we hear proper English, we hear it a certain way. When they hear proper English, they hear it as excellence. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Now, when you listen to Eminem, the structure in it implies very excellent grammar. Now, when they hear that, yes, they're looking at someone who looks like them too. That's
yeah.
a huge factor. But they associate proper grammar with excellence.
And they can
We do not.
understand them too, right? Like, like you
Right.
said, we spoke to Wu Tang and they speak, they were very articulate in their spitting and whatnot, but
We can
you
write
don't you
proper
don't know
English.
what they're talking about. We understand
Yeah.
what they're talking about, but
We can write proper English with no problem.
yeah,
It's just that we don't always associate that with excellence. We want to know what is the context of the proper English. We don't care about just the structure. The content needs to be there.
we
And
want to
the other
relate.
side of the
We
yeah,
want to
the other
relate. We
side of
want
the
to connect.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? And people, so
they
people
need the
feel it.
structure.
Yeah.
They're looking at structure over anything because they were raised on you need to write and speak with proper grammar.
So the
So,
structural excellence, let's just say on Eminem's end, and
mhm,
many rappers of his ilk's end. We could even say the same thing with Logic and people like that.
mhm,
The structural excellence kind of takes away from people being able to feel them on a soulful and on a
yes,
grit and a grassroots level because the slang goes away. You know what I'm saying? The the soulfulness,
emotion,
if you will, and the
emotion.
emotion goes away. Yeah, I mean, because people like Scarface or whatever, they don't have to hit you with the crazy vocabulary. They just hit you right here because they're
Yeah.
able to talk.
You feel his voice,
Yeah,
Scarface. You're gonna
yeah,
feel him when he says, when he talks about him going through Houston, and you feel the bossness in his delivery, right?
and
You know what
it's
I
the
mean?
words too. It's the words that
Mhm.
it's a choice. And I say this all the time when we talk about Tupac and lyricism and Chuck D. They're and Ice Cube too.
Mhm.
Their their take on how they translate their message is a choice. They could go out
I,
there and hit you with a bunch of vocabulary words and a bunch of words in the dictionary, but it's about conveying a point. And I think that when it comes to Eminem specifically, because I'm trying to think of any other artist that gets this level of a pass, it's all about the number of words and the number of stanzas You know,
Mhm.
they're counting words. I've never seen these things happen in hip hop
Right.
until people try to break down his greatness. And to me, if we talk about all the things that made hip hop great, yeah, great emceeing is great emceeing, but it wasn't just that. It was the slang, it's the flavor, it's the soul, it's the
Emotion behind your
the
words.
emotion behind it. It's the topics too. And those are a lot of things that I feel like, from a content standpoint, is removed from. Like, even if you talk about like I'll bring up Kanye again because I don't want this to just sound like a street thing. But even if you talk about people who may have grown up in the suburbs, if you will, and
Mhm.
black life in the suburbs, even they're able to connect. You know what I'm saying? So it's not
Yeah,
just
yeah,
street.
no doubt.
You know what I mean? It's just speaking a language. Like, you could
Mhm.
hear, Kanye on "He Don't Care What People Say" and feel his story.
No
And
doubt. Yeah.
and I think those are the things that make hip hop great. And I think um, when you get really, really articulate with the vocabulary and speaking the proper King's English, I think hip hop kind of gets watered down a little bit. It's a good mix.
Well, I think that we should both learn from each other, right?
Mhm.
White and black. I think that, because I don't think there's a right or wrong or better or worse here. You know what I mean? I love Wu Tang. I love Eminem. You know what I mean? Maybe not the same, but I still love them both, right? So, but there's a learning process that can happen with both. I think that we should get into the structure now of rhymes because we've mastered the emotion. And I think on the other side of the tracks, they can try to master the emotion, and get out of always the structure. Right. So now you're dealing with, I think we could learn from each other. Even for my underground heads that like other MCs more than Eminem, other white MCs more than Eminem. Like I like Atmosphere. I think Atmosphere is awesome. People like LP, people like, but and they don't always lean on the technical
I
writing.
like Mac
However,
Miller. I felt like Mac
I like
Miller was
Mac Miller,
very natural with his.
right?
Always like Mac Miller.
But Mac Miller was an anomaly to me,
Yeah.
right? Because when I heard Mac Miller, immediately a light bulb went off, like on contact. And it's not even that his rhymes were so amazing. What it was an ease in delivery that I said he got it.
You could tell he
I,
really loved the shit. And I'm not
I
saying
needed
that.
no explanation for him.
Yeah.
It was so effortless in how he would deliver rhymes that I said, okay, the only way it can become that effortless is through years of you rapping beforehand. You know what I mean? Because and he's rapping over, some boom bap stuff. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
it's like you can't wing that. Either you got it or you worked on it or you're still learning it. But immediately when I heard Mac Miller, a light bulb went off. You know what I mean? So you
Yeah.
have some that are like that.
Him and the
You have
Beasties are the ones that I seamlessly like. Yeah, I listen to. Like,
uh-huh,
I feel them
right.
on that different level. And again, not to say anything in regards to Eminem, like he's not dope or not good at what he does. Um,
Mhm,
I think that the technical aspects of what he does do well just
mhm.
doesn't always translate. And I just don't feel like the music. Um, I mean, if I'm being completely honest, we talk about all of the greats or the people that I frequently listen to or frequently get into. I just don't think that the music matches up in that way. Now, you said something earlier about once you cross over, it's you almost kind of have to water down what
Conform,
you're doing. Yeah, conform. There it is.
conform.
Conform for that broad audience. And
It would be in your best interest.
I thought about Kendrick on that Super Bowl stage, and I thought that he was going to conform there. But
Mhm.
again, the fact that most hip hop artists already have that foundation where it's like, okay, well, now it's time to conform. You still have all that other stuff to, fall
Sure.
back on because you've made so much material to get to the point where you would have to conform, right? Like Jay
Mhm.
already had Reasonable Doubt in Volume One before he actually conformed, and see
Right.
for me, with him having the ability to skip that step, it's like you don't really have that foundation of a classic or a hip hop classic on a grassroots level to fall back
Mm.
on. You don't have the Ready to Die. You don't have the, the Reasonable Doubt, the Illmatic. You don't have the, Good Kid, Mad City, because, from jump, it's like boom, you're crossed over. So now you're conforming, from your what you know of as hip hop from jump. I feel like how my name is was conforming off jump.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah. You know how my name is. That is the big, shot right out the dart, which I think makes sense to conform in that sense. And
Yeah,
I actually did like the song because I took it as a joke. You know what I mean? Even
right.
though it was serious, and I thought that was great. And this is why I'm gonna still give M high marks, and I'm gonna make a similarity with Nas here, right? When we hear Nas, it's very difficult to be Nas in the mainstream space.
Hmm.
When Jay Z first came out, not Jay Z of '98 or even '97. I'm talking about Jay Z in '96. Even if he was on TV, he wasn't. But even if he was on TV, it would be very difficult to translate this type of character to mainstream America. So, so the way, so Nas, he has a certain level of consciousness that can be hard to get people to dance, or do you see what I'm saying? So it's not that easy to translate what he did. Now he is white though, and that gave him another look, obviously. You know what I mean? But to hold it to where when he's done rhyming, I have the idea of, okay, this guy is an MC. I never lost that with him. That's all I'm saying. And the difficulty of his songs, because people will be like, well, his songs don't connect because they're not translating to me, because it seems like you are just trying to rhyme as many words as possible, as fast as possible, with as many different word plays as possible, and then it just looks like a mess at the end, right?
Yeah,
Well, that to me is very difficult. And see, that's why I'm still gonna hold him to a high regard, because I realize the difficulty in it. To make a Eminem show is very difficult. Do you see what I'm saying? Because even though he has the rock music undertone that's pushing him, right? Because if you're a white artist, right, or you could be a black artist, because black artists don't do this. But if we decided to rap over rock and roll, right, over pop rock, it would push us to a larger audience,
yeah.
because a pop rock audience is very vast, right? But the challenge there would be, now you still got to be an MC too. Don't give me no lazy rhymes. Give me
But
something
see, I
that's
don't.
well,
I agree
you know what
with
I'm saying?
you. I agree with you, but he never
Yeah.
had to. I mean, he did it, but he never had to really be an MC on those records. And again, it's difficult to compare it to his peers because he never really had to exist in that same arena with his peers musically because he went straight to the crossover audience. It's kind of like what Nicki did is the only thing I can really compare it to. She made a
Mhm.
choice when she made Super Bass and all that stuff. And if people feel like, yo, that stuff doesn't supersede Lil Kim's catalog, that's just how
Mhm.
people are gonna feel because these aren't really
Okay,
hip hop songs. But they were very
got it.
successful. You made a
Mhm.
choice to go out there and make the records that were going to sell the most records, and that's fine. But the
Right.
other side of that is, when we're talking about critical acclaim in the genre of hip hop, you're not
Mhm.
going to be considered with those records that weren't basically made for hip hop outlets.
And
You
I'm
can't
I'm
have
not
both.
mad. I'm not mad, but I could still counter that, because if Nikki wants to go and you want to get on some bars, she's gonna get on your level. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? The monster verse from Nicki Minaj is one of the most incredible verses I've ever heard. You know what I mean? Because it reminds me of a dungeon dragon. You know, it reminds me of someone who can go into character.
Yeah,
It's not exactly what she's saying, it's how she delivered it. You know what I mean? And that for Eminem, well, he was saying crazy stuff, but how he's delivering it
yeah, he
let
has
me know
skills.
he had skills. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
it's like even with Nicki Minaj, you know, she can go there if it's about bars. You know what I mean? So it's like they have the skill to do that, and they never totally let that go because she could have, not should have, she could have totally let it go, like a Doja Cat. When I hear Doja Cat, I hear a very talented person underneath all that pop stuff. Now
exactly.
I
I
know
agree with
people.
that.
Yes, I know people feel a way about her, or maybe you like her, maybe you
He
don't
can
like her.
rhyme.
But when I hear just the words themselves, I hear underneath those words must be a very talented person. You know
Mm,
what I mean? Because it's a way it's delivered that lets me know it's a very talented individual there. You know,
yeah,
so but she totally let rap go and
yeah.
just went. You know, now
Well,
she still
she knew
raps a
where
lot.
she could make the biggest
Yeah,
records, and if you have a
right.
talent to go out there and make records in an arena that is going to make you the most money, who am I to fault you for doing that? You know what I mean? But I will
Hmm.
say this: if we're talking about the best rappers and this and that, you can't get
I,
mad if you're not mentioned because you made a choice to say, I'm not really going to do the rap shit. You know what I mean? Like you made that
I,
choice. That comes with
I,
the decision. And I think the Interscope
yeah.
made the correct choice of, having Eminem go in the direction that he did. That was definitely worked more than him going the raucous
Oh yeah.
direction.
Oh
But
yeah.
these are the things that come along with it, you know? And
Mhm.
like you said, back then we kind of took it as a joke, took him, I don't want to say took him as a joke, but we knew that we were going to get some wild, zany characters when he was on the mic. And I didn't view that in the same way that I view, like, when I would hear a Jay or a Nas or a DMX record. And I say that because those were the big guys at that time. But
Right.
it's funny, 10 years after the fact, people throw him in the fold like he was with those guys. It was like, whoa.
I think he was though, Mike. You know, and I'm gonna segue to Drake too a little bit too, but I think he was because
Yeah,
he's
because I got to
there.
go in a minute. Dang, man, it's a great
He-
conversation.
He's on the ground with those guys. You know what I mean? I mean, he's there at the same time that they're there. You know,
Not
but
on
it's
the
just
same
like
platforms.
I think we could learn from each other. I think we should try to write a song like Eminem because you're not going to respect it until you try to do it yourself, and then you realize, okay, it's a level of difficulty here. You know what I mean?
I feel
And
like if
and
Eminem writes Rewind, they make a video for it. You know what I'm saying? And that's the thing that was a little bit different in the 2000s, where it was like, with all of our artists, you needed a club banger as the first single. DMX needed "What's My
I
Name"
hear
as his.
you.
Jay
I
Z
hear you.
Big Pimpin' or Do It Again to launch off Volume 3. Nas
Uh,
needed Nostradamus, you know what I mean? Like to get on the radio. He didn't need to do those things.
but not Nas still got off with "If I Ruled the World." That's very difficult to pull off.
Oh yeah,
That's a
that's incredible.
conscious record. That's a conscious record. Even though you know the beat was already a popular beat, it's a conscious record that got off. You know what I mean? And that's very difficult. You know what I mean? But I think that we could learn from M, just like I think we could learn from Drake. Right? Drake is singing. Now we're gonna look at singing as being ridiculous, but you could learn from that. When it comes time for you to make the hook and there's no singer in the room, what are you gonna do? You know what I'm saying? And maybe the hook requires singing. What are you gonna do?
Well, what hip hop has done
You know?
traditionally, the rapper would go in there, and I'll use "The World Is Yours" for instance, with Pete Rock. He's not really
Hmm.
singing, but rappers would go in there and just do it's
Exactly.
mine, whose world is this? And it's like
Hmm.
we liked that, you know what I mean? When rappers would do stuff like that because it was like real. And I remember when Ja Rule kind of came and took it, well, Ja Rule and Nelly kind of came and took that whole melodic thing to the next level. When
Yeah.
50 came in, was doing similar things, he clowned rappers trying to sing for real, or clown Ja Rule. He was like,
Yes.
he's really trying to hit notes. I'm just kind of over here harmonizing. And I just think that what Drake does is kind of an evolution of what has already been done, but he's taking it a step further by making
Hmm.
full out singing records. Where people like you could say that Andre and CeeLo and Lauren were the
Yeah,
best too.
no
So
doubt.
yeah,
But that's all I was. I'm still gonna. If someone wants to make a top 10 argument with Eminem, for me, I don't have an issue with that. He's not in my top 5 or top 10, but right after that, when we're talking 11 and 12, things get tricky. You know what I mean? For me
I
personally.
I
Now,
can't I can't knock his skill set and his success. But just from a cultural standpoint, and the fact that he hasn't had to do any, if many, of the things that
I,
most of
there you go. I respect that cultural aspect though.
yeah,
Aspect.
my bad. I gotta get on this other call, man. I hate to do that, man. But hold on,
No,
but
we
we'll
good.
wrap
We
this
can
up.
come
But
back.
yeah, it's like it's hard to actually, put him in a top whatever because it's hard to figure out what I'm basing it on. Am I basing it on the albums? Because if I go album for album, I don't think that his classics match up with, or his best albums match up with overall hip hop classics. Am I going with the singles? Am I going with just the bar work? Am I going with the content? I would just have to go on skill set alone.
When it comes to the cultural aspect, and if you gotta go, it's cool. When we look at a song like White America, right? There's a choice that M is making right there
Mhm.
about what culturally he stands on. And the culture he stands with has been our culture. I'm not just talking about black people, which I am talking about black people, but I'm talking about hip hop culture, right? He
Mhm.
stood on that. And I got to respect that because he could have went another way. He could have said, "I'm beyond hip hop culture and I'm so beyond them that they're just a stepping stone for me."
He
I
played
don't
it
think
right. I will
I
say
don't
that,
think
and that's why I say he's not a vulture because I know he loves hip hop, and I know he's giving back in the sense of,
he
50's career, Obi Trice, D12,
Shade
Shade
45.
45, all of those things. So I can't call him a vulture in that sense, but I do think there is a disconnect with what he did musically with hip hop culture. And for a lot of people, he'll never be in those top of the tops because of that disconnect. And I do think he was an experiment in that sense because
Mm,
he
okay.
straddled that line of, can you go out here and go outside of hip hop and come back around and fit right back in,
Mm,
be held super high? And I
okay.
think that's what we're seeing right now. Now, clearly, he's a big influence on, Kendrick's delivery, I would say. But Kendrick, comes from the culture in a way where no matter
Right.
how Kendrick portrays himself, he's going to connect because he's speaking the language.
No doubt. No doubt, man.
I
And,
hear
and,
I
and, you
gotta
know,
go,
I
man, but we gotta, go
yeah.
talk floor, man. We might pick up on some of
No.
this, see what the next debate is. I appreciate your time, and yeah, y'all hit like and subscribe, and let us know what y'all think we should discuss next. Go talk,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
sir.
Go